Like Tia said, my name is Stacy Baugues. I'm with PowerUp Fitness. And so we'll take a moment of a breather here, but I'm going to be sharing some activities today that you can do with students either virtually via Zoom or together on site with safe social distancing in place, but all of them are going to align with academics. So we're pulling some content today from a longer webinar that we do, 30 Ways to Align Physical Activity and Academics. So we're going to move through it at lightning speed so that you can get all the great content. So let's jump right in. First, I'll share some of the other resources that we've got available for you guys. First, we share monthly tips and tricks on all kinds of different activities, from ways to empower students through positive statements during fitness to at-home family fitness resources. And then we've also just launched our PowerUp Premium virtual classes. And so today, we've got a couple of links for you. We're going to be giving away 3 individual subscriptions to our PowerUp Premium virtual classes. So hang tight on how you can learn how to do that. Jumping very quickly into things, and let's see, forgive me, I'm going to be toggling through a few screens here. I'll add that there's going to be a lot of information today. You will have access to these slides. Michelle, one of our team members, is going to be sharing a link in the chat a couple times. So if it moves along in the chat, feel free to go back and reference that link, and we'll send you some sample lesson plans for you to try out the activities that we're doing today, and also access to these slides so you can see all the academic standards that the content is aligning with. So like I said, I'm Stacy, CEO and founder of PowerUp Fitness. You'll also be talking with Michelle in the chat a little bit as we engage through a few things. And then Sarah Doyle, we are safely socially distanced apart from one another. She's in the office back here right behind me. So founded PowerUp in 2012 when we started to see PE and recess being limited in schools. And if it wasn't totally cut out, kids were getting pulled out of that physical activity opportunity for academic enrichment. And so the inspiration was, well, why don't we just combine the two? I'm a pediatric exercise physiologist. I worked right alongside our after-school program directors with the school system for several years. And so that's how that came about. We made the programs after a lot of evaluation and research. We made the programs available in 2019 and have quickly grown to over 50 sites across 15 different states. So let's jump right in. We're talking about active learning. We're going to start any good educational presentation, right, with some objectives, learning objectives here. So I'm going to ask you to follow my instructions. So first, as I read this first objective, you're going to take your hands and put them on your head like you're putting on a thinking cap, okay? So we're going to apply creative thinking to the application of academic standards, okay? Next, you're just going to stretch in place. We just had a great workout. I want you to kind of stretch it out, cool it down. We're going to learn stretches, exercises, and games that can be implemented in a variety of settings and aligned with educational standards. Now, as I read this last one, I want you to do whatever little dance or movement feels fun for you, your version of joyful movement. So today, we're gonna have fun. That is active learning. So hopefully, you'll be able to remember those learning objectives even later today because we associated a movement with the objective itself, what we were trying to learn. That's the foundation of our Power Up Your School program. That's exactly what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to teach you how to take the activities and games and things that you're going to see today and lead them either virtually via Zoom or safely distanced for participants on site. But every single thing is going to align with an academic Common Core state standard, actually. So jumping right in, first we want to know what grade levels you're working with. So enter in the chat what age range of kids are you most commonly working with, or what age group does your program serve? Because that's going to help us better cater this material to your audience. So as those keep coming in, I'm going to share that, again, we're going to try to highlight all those grade level integrations as we move through this. So each activity section is going to start like this. Again, do not worry. You do not need to write this all down. We can send out a copy of these slides, no problem to you. Just, Michelle, if you'll enter that link in the chat for us. So everybody can get the slides who wants them. We're going to start with warm-up activities today. On this set, we're going to be focusing on counting, aligning with several of the counting and cardinality standards that are listed here for younger students. And then for older students, what we're going to be doing is reinforcing multiplication. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here you see the students, and I'm the instructor in this one, lifting our knees up towards our chest. What we could be doing is counting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 to align with those counting standards. You can count by 2s, by 5s. These videos were filmed before social distancing was in place, but we could have had the students space out a little bit further. And one way to integrate the academic content to that even is say, students, okay, you need to find a space that is equivalent of 16 squared tiles. So I need you to find a space that is the area of 16 squared tiles. What that means is they need to find a space that's 4 blocks wide and 4 blocks long, and they've created their square that has an area of 16 squared tiles. So one way to help socially distant space out your students if you're working together on site. As you saw us, we're easily performing this activity in place, standing in our own space. And again, adding the counting in there, counting by 2s, 5s, 10s, 100s to integrate that academic content. So up next is a Frankenstein walk. This is a really great stretch. Again, we're starting with some of these warm-up activities. To perform a Frankenstein walk, arms are out in front, parallel to the ground, and students then are kicking and stepping forward. One leg up comes as close to horizontal as is comfortable. Now, maybe you noticed that I used the verbal cue of parallel and horizontal. So we're bringing in some geometry standards into this exercise too. You can count by 10s all the way across the space up to 100, or count by 100s up to 1,000. Again, in this picture, students could have been more spread out across this space and continued kicking and traveling forward, or they could have spread out and performed this kick in their own space, just like we were doing in our own spaces right here without having to locomote forward. So up next, you're gonna see a video of the 3-step stretch, and you already heard from Sandy how wonderful midline crossing is for all of our problem solving, critical thinking. So this is another activity that has that midline crossing in it, and here we're gonna reinforce multiples of 3, or it can be used for really any odd number. So you're gonna see students, they're stepping forward. One little gal's doing it in place. The others are moving, locomoting forward, and they're stepping right foot in front of left, left in front of right, then right in front of left. And on the 3rd step, they're bending forward to touch their toes. Now, because they're bending forward on that 3rd step, or the odd number, they'll actually end up alternating which leg is in front on each forward bend. So to add the math component, with each step, what we could do is whisper, 1, 2, and then on our bend, shout 3 as we step forward and bend, 4, 5, 6. So you can really do this one with any odd number. It could be a 5-step stretch, a 7-step stretch. And again, as you saw, it could be done in moving forward in a larger space, or in place if you're teaching virtually or want to make sure students stay in their own space that's socially distant from one another. And again, we talked about the benefits of midline crossing here. So this last exercise in this warm-up group of activities is what we call a hip hop. In this video, we're going to be counting by 2s to continue those math counting standards. So we will take a quick look here. So we could have counted by 5s, by 10s. We also could have brought in some ELA or English language arts to review the alphabet, hopping side to side through the ABCs, giving a letter to each hop. We could spell something out as we're hopping across the gym. And again, easily adaptable for right there in place and continuing with that counting. All right, so let's move forward into some of the operations and algebraic thinking standards. One of the easiest ways to incorporate multiplication is simply by describing sets and repetitions of an exercise. So we can describe sets and reps though in several different ways, and that's what's going to help us align with several of these different academic standards listed here. So we're going to start by watching a lunge video, but thanks to a great workout, we already all performed a lunge, but you can see the students that are performing it here. and my quadriceps. You say that word, quadriceps. Okay, those are the muscles in the front of my leg. Those are the back of my leg. Hamstring, front, quadriceps. We call them quads for short. Alright, lunges all the way across. I'm looking for really good big steps. Bend knees, and low to the ground. And you're nice and slow. Next one I go. Not based on these. Very good lunge. So today we've got several clips from a lot of different sessions. So while we didn't do this in the video, we could have really easily incorporated multiplication by just how we described this activity. We're going to do two groups, or sets of 3 lunges for a total of 6 lunges. So let's do our first set, then we count together 1, 2, 3. Let's do our second set, 1, 2, 3. We did 2 sets of 3 lunges for a total of 6. So in that example, I, as the instructor, solved the problem for you. But you could also say, let's do 2 sets of 3 lunges. How many lunges would that be? And have the students answer the question. Up next, we're going to see a wall push-up. I love this. I think it's a great introductory to a push-up for kids of all abilities here. And again, an easy way to space them out, designate that by tiles. You have to have 3 blocks in between each of you and the person next to you. And again, this is also a really easy way to perform a push-up at home. They can lean against any wall. So we'll take a look here really quickly. Again, we're flying through these today. We want to get through as much as possible for you. So you can see hands are about shoulder width apart. The cue that we use often is bend your elbows and push back up. It's really simple. We don't want it to overcomplicate it. Just bend your elbows and push back up. Their feet are about a step or 2 away from the wall to really start building that upper body strength. Now, I'm gonna ask you guys to solve this problem in the chat box for me. What we wanna do is 10 push-ups total in sets of 5. Okay, so we want to do 10 push-ups total in sets of 5. Answer in the chat box, how many sets do we need to do? The answer is 2, right? So again, that way I just described the multiplication problem a little bit differently. You solved to figure out how many sets we needed to do of our 5 rep push-ups to equal 10. So up next, squat jumps. This is one we don't have a video of, but to perform a squat jump, you got the basis of a squat earlier, but you can see this young man in the green. You're kind of bent, squatted down like you're gonna sit in a chair, and then you're jumping right up. This is a really great cardio activity. And again, another one that's easy to have distance between students or do right there in place. So let's build in the multiplication here. This time I'm gonna use a comparison statement. We've got 8 squat jumps total. We can do 2 sets of 4 or 4 sets of 2, and then let the students pick the method or the mode that they want to perform those squat jumps to equal. Still everybody's doing 8, but they can pick the sets and reps combination that they like the best. So to sum those 3 exercises up, multiplication and division, probably one of the easiest standards to work into general fitness through sets and repetitions. You can also work with classroom teachers to determine which tables to focus on. If you've got a summer program that you're running either virtually or in person, maybe with limited capacity, there's been a lot of learning loss with the closures that have happened. Making learning fun through physical activity and just with these really simple ways to integrate that academic content, we're gonna help recoup some of that learning loss that happened, but also in a way that's really fun. And again, that active learning. Hopefully you can still recall those objectives that we talked about earlier, right? Okay, so let's stick to the math standards. We'll get to ELA or English Language Arts in a few minutes here. But we're gonna go to some of the measurement and data standards. And I want you to think about telling time. We can work this in a couple of different ways. So first we're gonna take a look at wall sits. We talk about music being fun, right? So every now and then we want to have fun. We dance during our wall sits. But way I have to work time into these. I could say, let's hold a wall sit for 1/4 of a minute. How many seconds will this be? 15 seconds, and then we'd all count together. Another note about wall sits for older students, I know we've got some working with older students here too, is that you can also talk about angles. I've got a right angle at my knee, I've got a right angle at my hip, I've got 90-degree angle at my knees, 90-degree angles at my hips, so that's what I should have to have great form with this one. So another way to incorporate some geometry content into wall sits, but you can also do that with lunges too. With our younger students, I think I talked about making a square in our lunges as we took a step forward between our knees and the floor. But you can talk about those right angles as well. So up next, plank position, another one we don't have a video of, but this is a great static exercise. Again, easy to incorporate these time and data standards. So I laugh every time that I share this. How many of you can relate? You're instructing some students to watch the clock and do something for 30 seconds. How many of them just wait and watch till the second hand gets to the 6, or maybe they wait until it gets back up to the 12 before they start their activity, because that's how they know how to calculate their 30 seconds. So we work on this one a lot. So enter in the chat box if you know the answer to my next question. We want to start our plank with the second hand on the 3 and hold our plank until it gets to the 9. Okay, how many seconds will this be? We're holding it, second hand is on the 3, we're holding our plank until it gets to the 9. 30 seconds, right? So 30 seconds could also be from the 2 to the 8 or the 4 to the 10. Again, helping really students work through the math and problem solving that goes along with reading an analog clock, but also charting, right? We can divide a clock into a chart. So thinking about a lot of things there. There's a lot of really great ways to build these time and data standards into static exercises like a wall sit, like a plank. For older students, you can also make the time fractions a little bit more complex. So I could say, answer in the chat box if you guys know this one. Let's hold a plank for 1/10 of a minute. How long would that be? We want to hold a plank position for 1/10 of a minute. How long would that be? It's 6 seconds, right? So again, thinking about time a little bit different. So not only are we charting, we're doing math, addition and subtraction as we read our analog clock, now we've integrated fractions too. Okay, so again, moving right along, flying through this, we're gonna wrap up some of the math integration with measurement and geometry. Talking about the configuration of shapes for younger students, but scaling up to perimeter, area, angles, and even the Pythagorean theorem for older students if you want. So we're gonna start with shape jumps here. I'm gonna ask you to use your imagination for this one. So we're gonna do an easy example, a triangle. And you know what, let's stand up for this one. We've already gotten up, we've been sitting for a few more minutes. We don't have a video, so let's do it in real life. So we wanna make a triangle. How many sides does a triangle have? 3, right? So now we're gonna integrate not only our geometry with the triangle, but also direction. So you're starting, and we're gonna pretend that we are starting on the bottom left-hand corner of our triangle. I want you to stand up and take a big jump up to the top point. So you're gonna have to jump forward and slightly to your right because we're starting from the bottom left. So here we go, jump for 1. And now we're gonna jump back and again to our right because we wanna get to that bottom right side of our triangle. So here we go, jump back and to your right. Now we wanna finish it up, get to our third side, jumping straight across to our left, and 3. So 1, 2, 3, we made our triangle. Now we want to build a triangle with a perimeter of 9. I know you're up, but do a quick stretch to your computer, your phone, and enter how many sides do we need to build a triangle with a perimeter of 9. Perimeter of 9, building our triangle. Triangle has 3 sides. We need 3 jumps per side. So again, let's start at that bottom left-hand corner. We're gonna take 3 jumps up to our top right points. Here we go, ready? 1, 2, 3. Now we're going back, still to the right. Here we go for 1, 2, 3. Now finish it up, hop across for 1, 2, 3. Nice work. Take a breather. So you can do a lot of different things with that. We could do different shapes, talk about area, perimeter, all of that. With older students, bringing in that Pythagorean theorem and give them the length of 2 sides, and they have to solve for the third side. So again, a lot of fun ways to scale that activity for all grade levels. Up next, talking about measurement, we're gonna measure the distance between 2 points, point A and point B. But we're gonna measure these distance in long jumps. So let's take a look. Students are swinging their arms, landing with taking off with 2 feet and landing with 2 feet, and jumping as far as they can, right? So we would have the students counting as they're making these jumps, and at the end, how many long jumps did it take? Now, of course, their answers are going to vary because their unit of measure is unique to them. But we could also talk about estimation here. Have them guess how many long jumps it's going to take them at the start of the activity, see the actual measurement once they finished, and then let's do some addition or subtraction. How far off were you from your estimate? Did you overestimate? Did you underestimate? Then you can change the unit of measure to bunny hops. So our distance now hasn't changed. We're still moving across the gym. It could be a hallway. You could also do this in a small space in kids' homes. It could be compare one long jump to the number of bunny hops that it takes you to get in a certain space. So let's take a look at our bunny hops really quickly. And again, thinking about how they compare. Did you overestimate? Did you underestimate? There's a lot of different ways that you can build into different content. We can talk about how long jumps and bunny hops compared to meters versus centimeters or feet versus inches. So a lot of great ways to integrate that measurement and data standards there. Okay, up next, switching to ELA or English Language Arts. This first activity that you're going to see is an alphabet stretch. It is a great warm up, cool down, brain break focus activity for just about all age groups. So you'll see us stretching through the alphabet. Okay, go. So again, we could have had the students spaced out. All filming was done before any distancing measures were in place. Again, another thing they can really easily do virtually, we're just making the shape of our bodies as we call out each letter. We could also scale this up for different grade levels. We can talk about naming a state or a state capital as we walk through each letter of the alphabet. We can bring in the periodic table of elements if we want. We could bring in nutrition components, fruits and vegetables as we're going through each letter. We could bring in 21st century learning skills, social emotional learning, character development as we're talking through our alphabet and stretching through our alphabet. Up next, you're going to see jumping jacks. We're actually going to be doing a math problem when you see these jumping jacks, but you can also do this as a spelling activity where you're working through spelling words, sight words, depending on your grade level, vocab words, recent readings, and spelling the more challenging words from those activities, giving one letter to each jumping jack. So we'll take a look at the math problem jumping jacks, but know that you can integrate spelling into this too. 10 minus 3. So again, you saw solving the math problem. On that one, notice that I called it out before the students performed. They helped find the answer. And then we reminded them after the activity, 10 minus 3 equals 7. That's how many we just did. So again, kind of a nice refresher of reminder, additional review. This next game, it is an all-time favorite for all ages. And I'm not kidding. I taught college PE for several years when I'm out doing PDs. This is adult favorite game. This is kids favorite game. It is an alphabet relay. And after we watch the video, I'll share how you can adapt this for at home activity or for safe distancing when everybody's together. Do y'all know the name of this game? It's an alphabet relay. What was your letter? Oh, I mean F. F, awesome. Mine was T. E? I picked T. Awesome. What did you say? I, J, K, L, N, O, I didn't. So as you can see, I was probably distracting them a little bit, asking them questions as they're trying to run their relay here. But this game also incorporates teamwork and communication. Again, those 21st century learning skills that are integrated into everything that we do, if we look at ways to do that. So how this can be played right in living rooms, or again, if kids aren't in a relay type line. So instead of running from a start and stop position, you can perform a certain number of jumping jacks, for example. So the first student does 5 jumping jacks, then shouts out a word with the letter A. The second student, 5 more jumping jacks, a letter B. And so it can still be that like relay team style feeling activity, but they're still performing the exercise in place, or they could jog in place for a certain amount of time and then call out the letter. Again, you can scale this up similar to the alphabet stretch with bringing in different types of content. So whether that is just calling out through the ABCs, states, capitals, nutrition, science, all kinds of things that you can require, and kind of put parameters on the words that they're allowed to share when they get to their stop point or their finish line there. So the next set that we're gonna see, we're gonna skip through running ladders just for time. I wanna get to more of the games here. But we're gonna have to think a little bit more creatively about these activities that you're about to see next. But the first one we're gonna take a look at is Food Frenzy. This one's best for younger audiences, but what we're doing is we're interpreting words, phrases, and figurative meaning with this one by calling out a food and an action, and then students use their imagination and act out what that food might look like.
They like bacon.
A short clip there, but if you have some fun Food Frenzy ideas, enter them in the chat. Kids come up with some of the best ones, but often we'll do pop like popcorn, scramble like an egg, but we'd love to hear your ideas too for some of the Food Frenzy actions. Okay, just a few more games today, and then I'll wrap up, make sure I've finished a fun time. I want to make sure all the great speakers have their opportunity as well. This next one is called Exercise Shipwreck. And probably many of you have heard of it before as shipwreck. Here what we're doing is connecting words to a visual representation. And the idea of this game is that you don't want to be the last one to perform an action or you're out. Now, if you don't want it to be an elimination game, it can still be just as much fun as a call and response game and without elimination there. And again, I'll share how to adapt this for virtual or physically distant implementation. So they're going to the front of the boat there, and then they're swabbing the deck, getting into a squat position. Then they're walking the plank, getting into a plank position. Now they're going to the sides of the boat. So one thing I'll add here is we are in a very small space for this number of students. Again, pre any distancing, but what you'll notice is instead of running to the front of the boat or the sides of the boat, kids were hopping on one leg, and that was a way to slow down the pace of the game, make things a little bit safer. They're less likely to run into one another or run into who knows what, walls, whatever, because they're just moving a little bit slower in a more crowded space. Those same slowing the game down strategies can work really well for reminding kids that they need to stay far enough apart from one another if you've got a big enough space to do that. The way you can adapt this for in-place play is a lot like that timed reaction game that Sandy took us through. It is very similar. I'm calling out, walk the plank. Via Zoom, you could get down as quickly as possible into the plank position. Swab the deck. All the activities, front of the boat, 1 hop forward, back of the boat, 2 to 3 hops backward, whatever quantity you want to put on it. But all of those directions can be done in place if you just think creatively enough. All right, so to summarize, and I know we didn't run the ladders or you didn't see that video, but we did things we interpreted the overall concept of key ideas and details in several of these standards. So we connected words to a visual representation. We used movement to describe key ideas in the setting of our story. With the shipwreck game, again, that can be adapted to really any setting. So we don't just have to be on a pirate ship. We could have been on a farm or climbing a mountain, and apply activity to the different settings, different time periods. You can make it applicable to the reading of the week. Alrighty, so again, quickly moving things with our last two games of the day. Science Explorers, it's a lot like Food Frenzy. So you're calling out an activity and an action, and then students are performing it. But we get the students to come up with the ideas, right? So maybe we're all in a jungle and we need to run like a leopard, or slither like a snake, or swing from tree to tree. Maybe we are in a desert. Ask students what kind of things we would find in a desert. Again, this is very easy to implement right there via Zoom practice, or keeping kids spaced out, just like you could do with that Food Frenzy game. All right, last game of the day is Cardio Freeze Tag, another just fan favorite. I'll share the touch-free option here after the video. So volunteers are the taggers. Everybody's trying to avoid getting tagged. But if you do get tagged, then you're performing squat jumps until they're unfrozen by someone else. You could add math or some type of recall to this one. So when you're tagged, you have to solve the problem, 100 divided by 10, and do that many jumping jacks to unfreeze. Ways to make this touch-free. So if you have the opportunity to play outside, it can be done as a shadow tag, where the taggers step on other students' shadows, and then students, instead of the unfreezing with a touch, they're unfreezing by the problem-solving skill there. So it's definitely a fan favorite, and the kids go crazy when we play this one. I don't have a virtual adaptation for this one, but again, that socially distant with the shadow tag or noodle tag could be an option. We try to all of our programming and the activities you see here today, none of them require any equipment. It's designed for before and after school, because we know that sometimes you've got a gym, then you get kicked to the cafeteria, a library. Sometimes you only have outdoor options. Sometimes it's only indoor options. So there's no equipment required. And again, all of the activities we shared today, with the exception of this cardio freeze tag game, can be implemented via virtual instruction. But this does have a great social distancing option for you there. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed the resources today. For those of you that are planning for programs, lessons, classes, whether that's virtual or in person or some type of hybrid, we've heard a lot about that happening soon. I hope it's given you some new tools for your toolbox. Again, our programs don't require any equipment, hopefully reducing germ transmission if you're doing in-person activities. And like I said, all the activities you saw here today and in our lessons can be taught virtually, or safe distancing between participants if you're in person. Again, designed for extended learning in mind, flexible for any space without the burden or the cost of extra equipment. So if you enjoyed these activities, if you want to see some sample lesson plans, if you want a copy of the slides with all the Common Core integration or the academic standard integration, then Michelle is going to put that resource link in there, and anybody who fills that out, you might be selected for one of the 3 individual subscription giveaways that we're giving to our virtual classes. So thank you guys so much. If you've got any questions, again, fill out that link and we can be in touch, or drop them in the chat, and I'll be here for the other presenters as well. Thank you guys so much. Tia and Alicia, appreciate you.